Hello everyone, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Ray Bradbury's Quicker Than the Eye, and specifically the short story in this called The Other Highway. I bought this book in 1996 when it came out, and I was on a Ray Bradbury kick. He was the first science fiction author that I really fell in love with and read a lot of his work, even before I decided that I wanted to get into science fiction like I have now. This is an incredible book. I highly recommend it. This is my first edition copy. It's faded on the spine, which is too bad. This is an interesting story because I read it in 96, like I said, when I was an undergrad. And my memory of it is a lot different than the reality of this story. This is the story of Clarence and Cecilia Travers and their two children taking a day trip. Just a road trip, taking a drive. And in my memory, I really remembered this as a science fiction story. What I remembered is that they came from this futuristic city where everything was seen to for them, and that they were in self-driving cars, and that they were completely overpopulated, and that Mr. Travers sees the old road that they used to travel down before all this technological advancement and decides to turn off the self-driving aspect of his car and go to the old road and manually drive down the old road like they used to. This is wrong. This is not what this story was. It's very close, but it's funny, and I just did a whole video that you can go back one and find, talking about whether or not Ray Bradbury is really science fiction or horror or literature. In this story, I think he's just doing literature. I think this is just realism. It's about a couple, and they're leaving LA. I only know it's LA because I read the afterword. It doesn't say LA in the story. So they're leaving a big city, and there's traffic everywhere, and they're traveling down this super fast highway. Of course, super fast to Ray Bradbury is 50. This is written in 1996. I don't know why 50 was the highest he could think of. Maybe back in 1996 it was 50. I remember it being 60, but I think I'm wrong. It's been a while. Okay. But anyway, he's going 50, which to him is barreling down the freeways with his family. They're complaining about how much they kind of hate the big city and how awful it is. And they see this old road, the old highway that was destroyed, basically no longer used because of the superhighway that's going through now. And Clarence is just like, forget it, let's go on the old highway. And his kids are like, yeah. And his wife's like, are you sure? And he's like, heck yeah. So he pulls over to the shoulder, drives down the grassy bump, and gets onto the old highway. And they start driving down the old highway, and it twists and turns, whereas the new superhighway doesn't twist or turn. It's very straightforward. There's nobody else on the road. They don't even have to worry about all the traffic and all that. And they come to a small town. And instantly, Clarence is taken with the nostalgia of his youth. And he drives up to this kind of general store, and an older man comes out and is like, wow, seeing your car has just shocked me. He said I had to pinch myself to make sure it wasn't 1926, I think is the year he uses. He says, nobody's driven down this road for years. So I was very surprised to see you coming down this road. And somehow they quickly get into conversation about all the houses around, and the general store guy says, I'm the only one that lives here. I own all of this. And he says, yeah, if you want, pick any house. You can rent it for $30 a month, which is, of course, insanely cheap. He said, hey, if you want to buy it, you can buy it for $10,000. And Cecilia, Travers, says, yeah, we're not interested in that. And he's like, I didn't think you would be, right? But they order 4 drinks from him, and he goes in to get the drinks. And while they're gone, there's a conversation that occurs that is the core of this story. Clarence decides that he thinks this is the greatest idea ever. His nostalgia has overcome him, and he is tired of big city living, and he wants to take this guy up on his offer and move into one of these houses. And Cecilia is absolutely against it. So it's set up with Clarence as the protagonist and Cecilia as the antagonist. And when I first read it, I was like, oh, Clarence has got it. I can't believe Cecilia's so awful. But this time reading through, now that I have a kid and a life beyond just being a college student, I don't think Cecilia is written as a bad guy. She's definitely the antagonist, but she's not the bad guy. She's the voice of reason, and Clarence is the voice of the desire for change and adventure, right? But also the desire to return to what he thinks of as the good old days, right? Where life is simpler, where his kids can grow up running around. Is this the midlife crisis battle call of a boomer? It absolutely could be. But I think that also does it kind of an unfair turn. I'm not a boomer. I'm from Generation X, and this calls to me as well. And I believe as the millennials get older, they will hearken back to a time that calls to them. And things will have gotten better for society. And I know a lot of people think things haven't gotten better for society, but I do. That's just my personal opinion. So I get the call towards simplicity. Let's not even call it a return to the good old days. Let's call it a return to not even a return. For Clarence, he desires simplicity over the complexity of city living. And no matter what your thoughts, opinions, or politics, if you look at the two places, you can see that one is a little more high octane in the amount of people you're surrounded by and the noise that you are confronted with in cities versus urban environments. Maybe somebody could even argue that. I don't know. But either way, that's what is at the heart of this novel. Clarence wants to escape. And Cecilia, who also is not a huge fan of the city, but she keeps reality in mind and says the kids have school, you have a good job, they have friends at school, and Clarence cannot, he says, well, that would all be better here, but he can't 100% back that up because it's just want. It's just want because he hates the city and he wants something better than the city. In the end, he cannot logically take one of those houses. Cecilia's right. He cannot do it. They have to go back to their lives. And maybe that's the heart of it. Just the desire to escape from the complexity of your own life. How many of us daydream? It's funny. We've got like, do you guys remember the Farmville game? All the farming games, Harvest Moon, the farm game on Facebook that was huge when Facebook first started, right? All these games where we pretend to live a country life and farm. Why are those games popular? Because they speak to us of a simpler existence away from technology. And the ironic part about it, of course, is that we're playing this on technology. But anyway, he wants a simpler life, but he can't have it. He has to go back to the complexity of his existence, the complexity of having to do all the things he does in order to live the life that he has created for himself. Escape is not an option. So they go back. But there is a metaphor that Bradbury uses at the end of this story that I would love to read to you, because for me, this is what stuck with me of this story throughout all the time I've remembered and loved it. This little bit at the end here. Billboards flashed by. A mortuary, a pie crust, a cereal, a garage, a hotel. A hotel in the tar pits of the city where one day in the pitiless glare of the noon sun, thought Mr. Travers, all of the great erector set buildings, like prehistoric dinosaurs, will sink down into the bubbling tar lava and be encased, bone by bone, for future citizens. And in the stomachs of the electric lizards, inside the iron dinosaurs, the probing scientists of AD 1 million will find the little ivory bones, the thinly articulated skeletons of advertising executives and club women and children. Mr. Travers felt his eyes flinch, watering, and the scientists will say, "So this is what the iron cities fed on, is it?" And give the bones a kick. "So this is what kept the iron stomachs full, eh? Poor things, they never had a chance. Probably kept by the iron monsters who needed them in order to survive, who needed them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Aphids, in a way. Aphids kept in a great metal cage." That is incredible. The prose of that, the image, the entire heart of the story resting on this image of AD 1 million archaeologists digging, finding the bones of great metal buildings, mistaking them for electric life forms that fed on the humans that have to live in the complexity of this city, the city eating us, the city using us for sustenance, the concept of humanity as aphids feeding great cities. This is incredible. This prose is beautiful. This image is so well thought out, and so much of the emotion of the story rests on it that it's almost unforgettable. I love this story. If you like this story, I highly suggest you read this whole book. A lot of times writers can start to wane near the end, and Ray Bradbury might have done so as well. But when I read this in 1996, he was still kicking. It's an incredible book, and I can't recommend it enough. I have some of his later stuff that I haven't read, but I do plan to in the future. This is the most recent of Ray Bradbury's books that I've read. That's not true. I'm sorry. I think I've read another one, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please click the like button. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. We'll be doing a lot more of it in the future. And thank you very much for watching.